So Manchester United defeated RB Leipzig by 5-0 on Wednesday night after a quite impressive performance by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his men. Marcus Rashford scoring a hat-trick after coming off the bench, becoming only the second player to do so. And do you know who the second player is? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It could be coincidence or what have you, but it's a pretty impressive feat from a young lad who's been making all the headlines, he's been making the front pages, and now he's definitely making the back pages. His work off the pitch and on the pitch is just brilliant. If there is anybody for the young kids to look up to as an inspiration, it is definitely 22-year-old Marcus Rashford. He's started an initiative of feeding homeless kids who can't afford meals, and at the same time he's scoring hat-tricks for Manchester United. So this is definitely an inspiration. But we'll be talking more about Marcus Rashford later on. Let's talk about the game in general. Now, Manchester United, impressive performance, but the first half was quite a different story. Now, they did sniff themselves in front after Paul Pogba played Mason Greenwood in through on goal after he timed his run perfectly, and with a left-footed shot, slipped the ball into the right-hand side of the goal. Now, after that goal, Manchester United and RB Leipzig were pretty end-to-end. RB Leipzig had plenty of chances of their own, and it was a pretty, slow, I could say slow game for Manchester United, not quite impressive. But in the second half, more so after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer introduced Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, that was it. Upamecano and Konate had been holding that Manchester United forward line for quite some time. They put in a very good defensive shift, in my opinion, and I see why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and most of the top teams really want to sign Upamecano, because he is fast, he is strong, his ball recovery is good, he has some pretty good tackles, and I was really impressed by it. And if Manchester United do get the opportunity to sign him, then they should sign him. But however, after Marcus Rashford was introduced, it was game over. It was too much. It was just heads and shoulders above everybody else. It was fast, it was tricky, he was strong, and he was just lethal in front of goal. Now, Marcus Rashford came in. Bruno Fernandes played him in after a wonderful pass, and only a pass that Bruno Fernandes would see, played him in through on goal, and he had the whole half of the field to himself, and with his pace, with his striking, deafening pace, that you're not gonna catch him. You're not gonna catch him if you give him all that space. And he went through one-on-one on goal and scored the first goal. Now for the second one, he outdid Upamecano, leaving him for dead, and then smashing one into the bottom left corner of the goal. And then Anthony Martial won the penalty. Of course, Marcus Rashford would have stepped up, gotten his penalty, or Bruno Fernandes would have stepped up, gotten his goal, but he decided to give it to Anthony Martial, who hadn't scored a goal for Manchester United this season. And obviously, you want to give your number 9 a boost, and so that he can get going and get you goals. And he giving the penalty, which Anthony Martial dispatched, and after that, he found Marcus Rashford after a wonderful run down the left flank, played in, passed the ball to Marcus Rashford in a pretty crowded area in the box, who smashed the ball straight down the middle of the goal to get his hat-trick and give Manchester United 5 goals and all 3 points, making it 6 out of 6 after 2 match days. Now, Marcus Rashford was the star of the show. However, everyone pulled up their weight. Everyone put in a performance. The defense, in my opinion, was spot on. Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof, after that impressive performance against Chelsea, carried that performance into this game, put in some wonderful defensive performances. And then, of course, Fred. A lot of Manchester United have been raving about Fred of late, and I'm glad to see that Fred has turned out to be the player that we expected him to be, and the player why we paid all that money, around 50 million quid for Fred. So he's turning into that sort of player. I know he had his, up and down moments at the start of his career at Manchester United, but right now he is a player that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just cannot think of not being on the pitch for him. every match week, and you could see why. He's putting in, he's covering the ground. He's putting in some very good defensive tackles, and he's shielding that back four perfectly, and he's doing everything right now. He just can't put a foot wrong. Then of course Paul Pogba, who has dropped to the bench over the past couple of weeks, was given a head start, was given the start in this game, and you could see that, you know what, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what he's trying to do is trying to create some sort of competition within this side, and that competition is working out well, because when Paul Pogba wasn't that pitch today, he played some absolute wonderful football. As I say, he played that pass in through for Mason Greenwood to score a goal, and had some pretty good 1-2 touches with Anthony Martial. We all know that these two can play together. We've seen it in the past, and every time they're on the pitch together, they just seem to have that French connection. And Paul Pogba turned up that night. But Van de Beek, who has been in the news lately for not being given game time, was given a head start in this game as well, and he went out there and performed. Not his best game, but we could see glimpses of why Manchester United decided to go out and sign him. And in my opinion, I think he just needs a little more time to adjust to Manchester United, and within due time he'll be a pretty important player, just as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, for Manchester United. And I think one major takeaway from all this is that Manchester United now look like a team with depth. They look like a team with depth. You see the first 11, whenever Ole Gunnar Solskjaer puts in the first 11, regardless it is Fred and McTominay, you know that on the bench you have someone like Paul Pogba, you have Edison Cavani waiting to come on, you have someone like Donny van de Beek waiting to come on. And if you're the opposition, looking at those sort of quality players, then you have to think to yourself that, wow, okay, so we have to deal with those sort of players as well. And you find that their first 11 is firing on all cylinders. They are scoring the goals, and if you can have that sort of depth, any team that wants to win anything has to have that sort of depth, and you can see that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is creating that. And one other thing that I have to commend him for is that he is being a risk taker these days, that he is trying new things out in order to come up with something that is going to work for them, and that is exactly what we wanted to see. We don't want to see a manager who sticks to one thing and is scared to switch things up, because you know what, he has big players in there, and he has everyone speaking in his ear through the side of the media saying this and this. He needs to be his own coach and needs to do things his own way, and we're seeing him do that with this set of players that he has, and it's working out well for him. Now the only thing that we want to see is momentum. We want to see consistency, and if he can put in that consistency, then who knows where Manchester United can end up. So far in the Champions League, they've looked impressive, beating PSG by 2-1. Then this victory, they're looking good so far, and I definitely see them qualifying from the group stages. But they have to keep this up. They have to keep this up week in, week out. They need to reflect this in the league as well. And as I say, just who knows where they could end up. Then, of course, we did get to see Edison Cavani also come in yet again. Now, for Edison Cavani, I think he hasn't played for quite a period of time, and at the same time, he's 33 years old. So it's going to take some time for him to just really adjust into this Manchester United team, and of course, in the Premier League, in one of the hardest leagues in the world, it's going to take time for him to adjust. But you know what? If he's serious about why he joined Manchester United, if he thinks to himself that he still has a lot of years to give, and he still has plenty to give in football, then he's going to put in the work, and we just have to give him time and see what he can produce for the club. But so far, he hasn't convinced. I know he's been coming off the bench, but it hasn't been convincing. You saw the likes of Odion Igalo every time he came off the bench when he came in from China to Manchester United. You could see that he was creating an impact in the game. So we just haven't seen him create any impact every time he's come on. So we just have to give him time and see just what he's going to offer for Manchester United. But one thing is for sure, it's going to be hard for him to get a starting place in that team, because the way Manchester United plays, they need players they need those sort of players, the Anthony Martial sort of players, the Marcus Rashford sort of players, the Greenwood sort of players, these players who can run through the channels, someone who can, play well on the left side of the pitch, on the right side of the pitch, and down the middle, because they need that flexibility within the front three. And if he can do something of that sort, or maybe if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has a way of playing him without, switching up that front three, then maybe it will work out. But for now, as I see, it's going to be pretty hard for him to get into that lineup, because the front three on that day is lethal. Greenwood, Martial, and Marcus Rashford are every time any defender or defense sees those three coming at them, well, they'll start saying their prayers. But it was a wonderful performance for Manchester United. For RB Leipzig, well, it was they did well for themselves for the first half and for a few minutes of the second half. But as I said, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer introduced Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, it was just one-way street, and they just have to pick themselves up. They are the Bundesliga leaders, so they have to pick themselves up and then go again. But it was a wonderful performance for Manchester United.